Yes, my name is Yemonja Smalls. I am a multidisciplinary artist. That's my new title. Because I work in all kinds of media. Plastic, wood, buttons, mostly canvas, a lot of fabric. I cut a lot of fabric up, a lot of paper, and anything I can put my hands on. Wood has been, as you can see, my media of choice as of late, but yeah, that's me. My creative journey has a lot of twists and turns to it. Maybe I should work backwards or forwards. Let's see. I've been painting since I was a kid. Drawing, painting, sketching. Watercolor was my start. I did a lot of sketching and tracing, my own work, and just doing a lot of layering even then. Very fascinated with painting flowers and nature. Now I very rarely paint nature. Now it's all figurative, humans, anything that represents interactive people. I need relationship in my work. So I've moved from kind of my straight canvas work to what you're seeing now, which is much more three-dimensional pieces, and really loving the idea of there being layers. This particular exhibit facing you kind of focuses more on that, but all my work has layers. I like to think of how complex we are as people. There's so many things beneath the surface. So most of my work in some way, form, or fashion includes cutting, layering, writing things behind, hiding things that people, to ensure that you can't see the full story, and then reassembling. One big focus is relationship, and I like the idea of, for example, using fabric that has a beautiful pattern in it, cutting it all apart, and reassembling different pieces in a different way. So it's like life. It's beautiful to start off with, and life be lifing, or something happens, and it has to get reimagined. So I like to put things back together in a different way, and still have it reflect that it's beautiful. It's differently beautiful, but it's beautiful. And have folks, at least in my process, focus on the fact that there's beauty in fracture, there's beauty in levels of brokenness, and something even more, I'll say magical, but something really amazing about putting things back together. I kind of touched a little bit on this, but one of the major themes in my work is relationship. It influences all the work that I do, regardless of whether it's a sketch, paper cutting, woodwork, just layering and collage. All of it has to do with relationship. And I guess the biggest focus is, again, showing that there are layers, that there are parts that you'll never see. And it's only until you get closer, and with some of these works, you'll realize you won't really can't appreciate what goes into it until you look at it from different angles. You can see that there are pieces of broken wood behind there. Some of the pieces, you can see that there's words written on it. Because I know that I've written stories on the back of some of the pieces and then glued them. I know that you'll never get to see that story, but there's a whole story happening in the creation. I think the beautiful part about making is the process, right? I am sanding, I am burning things, I am sometimes burning myself by accident. But not knowing how things are going to turn out is something that, to me, organically and authentically really allows me to appreciate creation. And so in all my works, I really like to think about, one, how complex we are as human beings, and how amazing it is when you have connection with somebody else and it actually sticks. And I make this reference. These are all hanging beautifully and they're all together, but I've had some fall apart because I used the wrong materials, right? Like I might have tried to glue plastic to wood with the wrong glue. And that kind of speaks to relationship, right? They look good together, but you didn't do the work. I didn't understand what materials were needed. I didn't know how much time it took for something to cure before I tried to hang it up on the wall. And that is kind of the process that speaks to me in creating. So this exhibit is called Facing You. And I have a big fancy long artist statement around it, but if you, in simple terms, I wanted, they're mostly faces and a visage of people, and I wanted people to be able to appreciate the surface of it. You see beauty, right? You see color, you see layers, but you can't really appreciate it until you kind of stand and look at it. And the way this is hung, you can see from different sides that there's some things going on behind the surface. And so for this particular exhibit, I wanted people to think about the fact that there are lots of things that are happening beneath what we present on the outside. It's beautiful, I got my makeup on, you know, it's all put together very meticulously. But it's only, again, until you get closer that you can see that there are layers. And I'm inviting the viewer to say, what did it take to put that together, you know? And there's a piece underneath that I can kind of see it from the side. What role does it play in supporting what you see on the outside? And again, just kind of reflecting the fact that this is all of us. You know, we present a certain way so that people can appreciate us, and it's only until you get closer that you can see that it takes a lot for the piece to hang well together. All of these pieces are wood pieces, so kind of moving in, one of my quotes is leaning into discomfort. So the length of time that it took to sand the work and then figure out how many pieces of wood is it going to take for this arm to stay elevated above this head, and this eye needs to be a little bit farther than this one. So just the calculating part of creating the work has been, to me, almost puzzling, like a journey. Because again, the image is formed in my head, but by the time I had to actually implement my plan, I realized maybe I didn't plan as well. So there's some accidental beauty that shows up, and others that I realize it takes a lot of work for things to fit together. I spoke a little bit about relationships, and I guess in creating the work, especially the faces, I think about how hard people work to present an image that's beautiful. You know, the parts that you don't see are the stories that I've written behind the mouth and behind some of the eyes, and I think that's something that you can only appreciate when you have a conversation with me about the work. So I'm glad you asked that question, but it is a work in progress. Even as I look at it, I go, I remember what happened when I made that. I remember that I had to recalculate a little bit because it looked like her hand was in his mouth, or, you know what I mean? Like, just having to readjust. And at the beginning of putting these together, I never glue without intention. So I'm layering things, and then I move it around again, and then I move it again. So it keeps going through editing until I decide, all right, here we're getting ready to use the real glue, and then it's done. And so I think there's some appreciation to, again, the curated presentation of our face. I actually did, I just had an exhibit just close in Manassas that was called In Our Image. And it kind of in the same vein speaks to relationship, but the idea of us being created in God's image and how, as an artist, as a maker, I was creating bodies, right? There are all these figures, and if we're all kind of created in God's image, how do we all look so uniquely different, right? What's that image mean? So I was really excited about what emerged in the creation process, and that is how beautifully complex we are, how amazing it is, and how I just think it's like an amazing thing that that we're breathing air, that our hair is still growing, that we see things and we interpret things. Like, the level of complexity of the human body is mind-blowing to me. Me as an artist just trying to create a body with these wood pieces and then have two people dancing, or have the eye look like it has some unique eyelashes with beads on it and all this. It just helped me to appreciate, even when my body's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, as someone who's getting older, right? Like, I can't jump up like I used to, all right? But I've appreciated even interacting with other people to see what they see, because what I found, even in layering fabric and wood, what I intended, what I see in my work, somebody else will see something different. Somebody else sees a heart, or they see a peacock, or they see how upset the person is, and I'm going, no, they're laughing, there's joy. So how people see themselves in the work is what kind of excites me about that particular exhibit. People ask me that all the time. They're like, when are you finding time to do this? How? I do wake up very, very early. Very early, like sometimes 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the beautiful thing is I have a studio that's away from my home, but it's safe, and I can make there in the wee hours. So usually I'm making anywhere from, I try not to say when I'm going at 3 o'clock in the morning, but somewhere between 5 and 7. And then I can switch gears. So there's something to kind of setting the stage. It's a meditative process creating. So early in the morning, and then sometimes late at night, and weekends is kind of meant for restorative creating. People always say, well, that's hard work. But I'm telling you, just like given some of the challenges of working with people with developmental disabilities, thinking about the crises and challenges that people are just struggling through, and seeing people live their best lives, it's hard work. The people that we work with, the teams, and it's hard work. And then kind of reflecting on some of the things that aren't going well and the challenges of trying to help somebody navigate what in some cases is a very challenging life, sometimes requires me taking off that day. So Dr. Smalls becomes Yemonja with the stuff in her hair and paint on her face, and like, time to break something, gotta cut up some fabric. It's therapeutic. So it's almost just a necessary process, just like it's time to eat. Some of it requires a taking off my day. So I've learned to create a balance that really works for me. It's almost a cyclical process. Very interesting question. I do work with people with developmental disabilities a lot. It used to be much more hands-on. Worked with behavior analysts, had to deal with people that experience like maybe physical aggression, psychiatric issues, and all kinds of challenges. But also working with people whose limbs didn't work the same way as ours. The way their mental functioning, their developmental delay might have challenged how they navigated space with me. And so in creating work, I love realism. I love things that look accurate and all that. But what I've enjoyed is accentuating the beauty of difference, right? That different isn't unattractive. It is, again, beautifully, I just find beauty in difference. So what I've enjoyed is also thinking about how complex it is to put something together. One particular challenge is the idea of, I think in the older days of me working, having to develop behavioral treatment plans with someone who doesn't necessarily tell you what's wrong. So you have to do a lot of observation, do some repeat analysis just to see, well, what's causing this behavior? What can we do to make it better? In my work, I've kind of played around that same topic, the same idea, which is, well, let's see what this does. What happens when you mix these colors, or a little bit of this texture with this? What happens when you put beads on it? Does it stay? Do you have to use a different kind of glue? How are these colors going to play well together? So I think the idea of putting puzzles together is how it's informed by the work that I do at the jobby job. And the other way around is that it takes time. So the creating of work there are times where it's a lot of my artistic process is that the image is already formed in my head. I don't do a lot of sketching it out first. It's like I get a download, and it's like a snapshot. It's like, all right, you got time to start getting it out on paper or getting it out on canvas or starting to pull it out and get it prepared to cut on wood. And sometimes I don't like the length of time that it takes to complete a piece, especially the wood pieces. And so I've enjoyed learning patience. That stuff takes time. I had a mentor say, you need to, because I used to start work and had to finish it. So that means if I started it in the morning, I got to keep working on it until it's finished. And what I've learned is to pause, put something aside, maybe start on something else, and let some stuff simmer so that you can really see how what it's supposed to be, the spirit of the thing, can kind of emerge and show itself, if that makes any sense. I think it's an ongoing process of allowing things to grow. That's a good thing, because I like plants to hurry up and grow too, which is why I'm not good with plants. But something very beautiful happens when you step away from something and then kind of re-engage it and then edit and be okay with editing. So yeah, it's a whole process. I'm learning. I feel like God's working on me in the creation of work, which is, I'm like, oh, that's sneaky. That is so sneaky. I will say that I've had a unique opportunity in meeting Rhonda Dallas, first of all. And it's through her that I was introduced to the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council. And what's been so exciting is just how many artists have been impacted by the council. The unique opportunities, I've seen just great exposure, which some of our artists, we got all these great skills, but we're looking for an opportunity to get out there, right? I joke about it, but it's like, how many times have you met an artist and you're going, your work should be on billboards and you should have a mural, or just like someone who can sing, and you're like, your voice, you should be on stage somewhere, but they don't have the right opportunity, they don't have exposure, they don't know the right people. The council has been a great doorway for artists to get the kind of exposure that, especially for example at Arts the Nation, the exposure that we might not have gotten other places. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity. Again, prime real estate, amazing opportunity for people to see my work in these windows, and also just a mixed and diverse group of people that are walking through these doors. That's exposure that an artist can't pay for. It's been a great opportunity. I'm really, really happy to have had the opportunity to work with Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council. Again, I'm one of those people who's still consuming that advice. I'm learning. There's so many things. Everybody's like, oh, you're an artist. You do Instagram and you do. I'm like, I'm learning as I go. The same advice I'd give to an emerging artist I'd give to myself, which is keep your ears open, stay humble, share, because sometimes you get to come up and then you don't, it's like there's not enough room for all of us to have that experience, right? There's so much uniqueness out here, and there's room enough for us to share our gifts. There really is. I would say, yes, the art world says it's a competition, but be yourself, maintain your authenticity, and stay humble. But be yourself, and keep putting it out there. I think the struggle is that we all want to be in the, well, not everybody, but whatever your goal is, the museum, fame, exposure, some famous person buying your art, I don't know. But in the process, don't lose yourself in your creative journey. That's probably one of the big pieces of advice I give. And love yourself and the changes that your artwork goes through. So I have a few shows coming up, but outside of the local events, you can find my work at yemonjapaints.com, and that's YEMONJA paints.com. And on Instagram, I'm Yemonja Paints as well. So, And I'm dancing and sometimes acting silly on there, but that's part of, you know, the diverse aspects of my creative process. So I'm also on Facebook as Yemonja Paints, but you can find me on most social media platforms and see a good mix of the work that I do. I like to show process too, so it's a great place to see it.